You're listening to Sips of Sanity, your toolkit for emotional and intuitive intelligence, or what we like to call the dirty work. Let's do it.
Hello, patrons. So we're on day 4, and we're going to be talking, first of all, about nonverbal cues.
Okay, so we're talking about it because it's a tool to create or destroy emotional safety in a relationship.
Yeah.
You can work it one way or the other.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to say about this to start with is the other person's perceptions of your verbal cues is what's important. Because you might think that your face is saying that you're creating emotional safety for the other person, and they may be looking at your face saying, no, it doesn't work for me.
Right. So here's where the visual comes in. And if you're just listening, I apologize. But like if you're talking and I do this to indicate that I'm listening and feeling something, and I'm trying to show interest and intrigue, and you're like, fuck, she's judging me. Right? Like my face is a disruption at this point. And it's creating an interrupt. It's creating an insecurity. And so that has to be a conversation where I've got to receive that feedback. You've got to give that feedback to say, this is not helping me. This is how I feel when you give me this face. And we need to decide together, do I get to continue making it and you need to understand what it is? Or do you need to say to me,
Yes,
you need to not make that face?
Yeah, because if I understood what you were trying to do with your face, you were trying to say, oh, I'm engaged, I'm listening, I'm here for you. I might sit back and go, oh, okay.
I could enjoy that.
And reevaluate that and go, yeah, I could accept that. Thank you for putting that on the table. Or, nope, I reject that.
And remember too, like none of these are hard and fast rules forever and ever, right? Like your relationships are about constant correction, constant checking in. And so this just happened this morning with a girlfriend of mine where she told me something horrific that happened to her. I had a nonverbal reaction, and it was the feedback that was given was, that was helpful. Thank you. Well, on another day, that feedback might be, I'm upset and your nonverbal reaction is not helping right now. I need you to just be measured and hear and support me in a steady way instead of matching my level of distress. Right? So, and we've got to be able to be open to those conversations and that feedback to understand what is needed in each moment. Because if I'm matching her rage and the situation really is rageful, one day that might be something that contributes to a solution, contributes to validation, and on another day contributes to dysregulation in her. Right? So again, it's that check-in with one another to say what is needed in this moment, what is needed in this conversation.
Okay, thank you. Now, another thing I'm going to point out is tone of voice. And same conversation can apply. Everything that we're saying, I might think that my tone of voice is totally fine. And the other person might say, no, you were yelling at me. Or your tone of voice indicated anger. And that means that I feel insecure with you right now. And you have to listen to that because that's their perception. You might have to say, okay, thank you for telling me that. That wasn't my intention. Or, holy shit, I actually was feeling like that. I'm going to show up and be honest. I actually was feeling that way. I'm sorry. That's something I have to deal with because I'm the one that's dysregulated in this moment, but it's affecting you. So just give me a moment. Give me a moment and I can show up for you. And that honest communication moment to moment, which is what you've been describing, is saying we're both showing up. And that both showing up authentically for each other doesn't mean emotions have to be perfect. It doesn't mean they have to be the same every single time. And the last time I showed up and you said this was okay, now it's not. I never know what you want from me. We're not talking about behaving with immaturity. We're talking about saying, I'm accepting your feedback. Thank you for letting me know how it makes you feel. That matters to me.
And we're also saying that it takes time to build that rapport so that you know you can trust what someone's saying. So I have a brother who's not my biological brother that speaks in a tone that is very intense at a volume that is loud with a twinge of annoyance and anger. And we've had multiple conversations where we've been discussing to what I believe is just very mundane things. And when he speaks, I will have to say like, hey, have we crossed a threshold here? Like, are you angry? And he'll go, no, I'm not. I just, what I was saying was, but that's his tone. He's deep in his tone as well. And so that kind of pulse check that happens, he knows I need to do it to feel safe so that he can continue with that kind of a tone, right? And I need to see over a period of time, which is what I'm trying to get back to, that when he says, no, I'm not angry, he actually means, no, I'm not angry. This is my tone. I do sound annoyed. It sounds almost a little defensive, but in fact, that is not how I feel. And you can trust me, right? So we have to see with time and consistency what is actually true.
Perfect. Okay, Kelly. So let's talk about body language next. And the fact that, again, sometimes we are not aware of our own body reaction. And what matters is the other person's interpretation of our body language. So we might cross our arms. Some people can point a finger just as the way that they're speaking, not meaning that they're actually pointing at you, accusing you, putting you down, trying to say, use it as a power over. And what is important is how the other person interprets it, no matter which way we're using it or what we mean by it. So if the other person says that pointing of the finger I find rude or domineering or whatever it is, offensive in any way, we have to take into account, regardless of what we intend, and be able to consider where they're coming from and say, okay, I'm seeing it from your point of view. That is something I need to change.
Okay, so this is going to trigger a lot of people's people pleasers. And it's like, well, what do I have to consider? How much do I have to consider? Because you're saying everything matters about how another person perceives me. You don't just switch and change because someone says that makes me uncomfortable. We're talking about a two-way conversation where the person who gets uncomfortable, the person who is interpreting your behavior or your body language or whatever, is able to actually say as a check-in, what is that? What is your intention with that? We're not saying that you have the power to say, stop that. We're saying you've got to communicate how a conversation is making you feel, how a situation is making you feel. And it involves two people to say, okay, noted, thank you for telling me what needs to shift or what needs to be understood so that this can continue.
Right.
This isn't about someone acquiescing to the other and saying, because you're uncomfortable, I need to change.
Yeah, because
Just saying it because you keep saying it's how the other person perceives you that matters. This is true, and it's a conversation.
that's right. So to wrap that one up, Kelly, maybe we can say a good question that you could ask yourself is, what message is my body language conveying to the other person? Okay.
Yeah, because if I have crossed my arms several times in a conversation and just actually interjected and said, hey, I'm cold. I'm not, I'm here in this conversation. Hey, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm here in this conversation, right? You can know that your body language is saying something closed and communicate, I am here, right? There can also be, hey, do you mind facing me while I say this to you? I know you've got other things to do, but can you square up with me so that I know you're here? We just want to be checking in as to what might I be conveying and what do I want to convey and how can I be in more of an alignment with what I want to convey.
That brings everything really, truly to authenticity, I think. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on now to active listening. And I'm aware, and maybe this is just a good time to remind people that in Sips of Sanity, we've done a full series on active listening in the past.
A full series on the levels of intimacy.
Yes. And that as part of this particular series on creating safety in emotional relationships, that one of the key things to have are active listening skills. And that's for both of you. It's not for one person to have active listening skills. It's for each of you to be able to fully be engaged in listening to the other person, which partly means that you are showing up and putting your defenses down, and that you're not trying to have your own particular agenda being heard by the other person, but that you're entering into that conversation with that other person to say, I am here to acknowledge you and to listen to you.
And to seek to understand.
Yes. And that I expect the same things from you for me when it's my turn. Mm-hmm. And that in fact, we can take turns. And sometimes not. Some conversations, it's appropriate that it's one-sided. Mm-hmm. And that's okay that it's one-sided.
But there should be a conversation about that occurring.
Yes.
Right? So if you're sitting, discussing an event that happened, I might say to you, hey, I need to debrief about this, but I need it to be my story. I need it to be my experience. Do you have the capacity for that right now? I don't have the capacity for your stuff yet.
Exactly.
That's an option. And you might say, cool, but I also need to debrief. When might you have capacity for me? Can we try again tonight or tomorrow morning? Right? So we can make a plan together. This is active listening where you're clarifying the role with each other. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be the speaker? Who's going to be the listener? As the listener, what do you want from me? Mm-hmm. Right? When this is all said and done, are you going to ask me to wear a different hat when I'm done listening, which changes the way I gather information?
Yes. Oh, that's such a perfect thing to point out, Kelly, because what is expected directly relates to how I'm going to be the listener. Mm-hmm. So if I don't know that, I might have to ask you to repeat everything all over again so that I can respond to meet your needs. Mm-hmm. And then don't be frustrated when I do because you didn't tell me that at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Or you are going to tell me two different things and I get to do two different jobs at different times. That's important.
And me asking you to repeat yourself isn't because I didn't listen. Yeah. It's because that was step one. And then I need you to repeat yourself so that I can do step two well.
Yes. I have to say on a very personal note that that's one of the things that I absolutely love about our relationship is that I look forward to being able to listen to one conversation twice because it's allowed me to learn that I can slow myself down to have two different roles in two different conversations about the very same thing. Mm. And it blows my mind how much I can learn when I have to listen to it twice. Mm. And it teaches me about my own processes and that I have the time and the space and the safety in the relationship to be able to go through two different things and not feel the stress of, oh my God, I thought all of this was expected of me in one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much, Kelly, for today's show, and we look forward to our final one for Friday.